Welcome back. And now for the news in detail. We'll start from the U.S., which has threatened to hit 52 Iranian targets very fast and very hard if Tehran attacks any American citizens or assets. President Donald Trump said the shortlisted targets include very high-level sites important to Iran. He said the targets represent the 52 Americans who were held hostage in Tehran for 44 days in 1979. The president said that Washington would use some of the brand new equipment on Iran without hesitation. Responding, Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said, having already breached international law, President Trump has threatened to commit new breaches. He said targeting cultural sites constitutes a war crime. Earlier, the U.S.-led military coalition in Iraq said 2 rockets fell near its bases on Saturday night, but it said none of its soldiers were killed or wounded in the attack. Meanwhile, Qatari Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani has called for de-escalating tensions in the Gulf region. He met Iranian President Hassan Rouhani and his Iranian counterpart Javad Zarif in Tehran.
Al Thani said Qatar is worried over Soleimani's killing as it was an unprecedented action. Rouhani said, under current circumstances, Iran expects friendly countries to explicitly condemn this murder by the U.S. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi said China will play a constructive role in maintaining peace and security in the Middle East. In a phone call with Zarif, he said U.S. military's actions violated the basic norms of international relations and would aggravate regional tensions. Meanwhile, Germany's Foreign Minister Heiko Maas has called for direct talks with Iran to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East. EU's High Representative Joseph Borrell also urged all sides to exercise self-restraint and to work towards de-escalation. Oman, meanwhile, has also urged the US and Iran to utilize diplomatic channels to resolve issues.
And in a related development, Iraqi Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi has discussed the situation in Iraq and the region with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Mahdi's office says the 2 leaders discussed ways of mitigating the effects of recent events to avoid total escalation. Earlier, Saudi Arabia's King Salman spoke with Iraqi President Barham Saleh and stressed on the importance of diffusing the crisis. Saudi state media said King Salman told Saleh that Riyadh wants security and stability in Iraq. Meanwhile, NATO has suspended its operation in Iraq to train Iraqi army personnel amidst growing instability in the country after the US airstrikes. Moreover, Washington's killing of Iranian commander Major General Qasem Soleimani has received mixed reactions from all around the world. People in the United States took to the streets against the raid and their president. More about their anger in this report.
More than 70 protesters were organized across the country by a U.S.-based anti-war coalition. The protest organizers said the Trump administration has essentially started a war with Iran by assassinating Soleimani. From Tampa to Philadelphia and San Francisco to New York, protesters carried signs and chanted anti-war slogans. In Washington, D.C., dozens of people protested against the airstrike and U.S. troop deployments to the Middle East. Armed with a variety of chants and signs, the demonstrators began their day outside the White House. Actor and activist Jane Fonda joined the crowd, bringing her message of climate change awareness to the protest.
Please understand, the Pentagon is the biggest institutional user of fossil fuel in the world. Right. That we can't anymore lose lives and kill people and ruin an environment because of oil and fossil fuels.
The group marched from the White House and along Pennsylvania Avenue to the Trump International Hotel. Also in Los Angeles, people gathered to protest against war, holding up posters that read "No War on Iran."
Meanwhile, in the Iranian city of Ahvaz, funeral processions of slain Commander Qasem Soleimani has begun, hours after his remains arrived from Iraq. Thousands of mourners gathered in the southwestern city while holding portraits of Soleimani. The funeral ceremony was held in Baghdad, Karbala and Najaf on Saturday. The next destination of the funeral procession will be Mashhad. The bodies of Soleimani and acting head of Abu Mahdi al-Mohandes will then be transferred to Tehran, Qum and Kerman. Soleimani and al-Mohandes were separately leaving Baghdad airport in 2 cars when they were assassinated. Moreover, Britain says it will escort UK-flagged ships through the Strait of Hormuz after the US killed Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani. In a statement, Defense Secretary Ben Wallace said he ordered 2 naval vessels to prepare for escort duties. Wallace said he spoke to US Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, who urged all parties to work towards de-escalation. He alleged that during the last few months, US forces in Iraq have been repeatedly attacked by Iran-backed forces. Wallace said under international law, Washington is entitled to defend itself against any threat to its citizens. Last year, British naval vessels escorted ships through the busy route after Iran seized a British-flagged tanker. A group claiming to be hackers from Iran has breached the website of a US government agency. They posted messages vowing to avenge the assassination of Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani. The website of the Federal Depository Library program was replaced with a page titled Iranian Hackers. The hacked website displayed images of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and the Iranian flag. Another graphic depicted US President Donald Trump being punched by a fist emanating from Iran as missiles fly by. The graphic narrated Iran's supreme leader Khamenei's statements after Soleimani's killing. Now, China has issued a safety warning to its citizens living in the US amid increased security risk. This comes after the assassination of Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani by the US. In a statement, Beijing's embassy in Washington advised Chinese citizens to stay alert and take safety precautions. It said they should closely be cautious before going to public places. Anyone who fears or encounters a possible threat has been advised to contact the embassy or their local consulate. Moving on to Saudi Arabia, which has condemned the Turkish parliament's decision to deploy troops to Libya. In a statement, the foreign ministry said it is a violation of UN Security Council resolutions and undermines efforts to resolve the Libyan crisis. It said Turkish escalation constitutes a threat to regional security and interferes in the internal affairs of an Arab country. Earlier, Libya's eastern-based parliament voted unanimously against deals on security and maritime cooperation the Tripoli-based government signed with Ankara. The parliament also voted to cut relations with Turkey and refer the head of the GNA, Faiz al-Sarraj, for prosecution on a charge of high treason. In Libya, 30 people have been killed in an airstrike on a military school in southern Tripoli by Khalifa Haftar's forces. Libya's UN-recognized government says 33 others were wounded in the raid and the death toll may rise. It confirmed that all 28 killed in the attack were army cadets. In a statement, Haftar's eastern forces said the attack was part of its operation to capture Tripoli. Earlier, Khalifa Haftar called for mobilization of forces and fight against what he described as the Turkish occupation of Libya. The UN says more than 1,000 people have been killed and at least 5,000 injured since the start of the operation. In Burkina Faso, 14 people, including several children, have died after a roadside bomb blew up their bus in northwestern Suru province. Security officials say the vehicle was carrying students back to their schools after the New Year break. Security officials says it's unclear who is behind the attack. Al-Qaeda-linked AlShabaab fighters stormed a military base in Kenya's Lamu County used by both the US and Kenyan military. Kenyan Defense Forces said an attempt to breach security at Mandra airstrip has been successfully repulsed. Kenyan military spokesman Colonel Paul Njuguna said 4 terrorists have been killed. He said the airstrip is now safe. However, Al-Shabaab claimed it has destroyed 7 aircraft and 3 military vehicles. In a statement, the group said it has killed several American and Kenyan troops. Pakistan says the UN should fulfill its promise of granting the right of self-determination to the people of Indian-occupied Kashmir. Kashmiris around the world are observing the 71st anniversary of a UN resolution on a plebiscite in the occupied valley. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India's repression and state terrorism have denied Kashmiris their UN-mandated rights. He said for over 7 decades, human dignity of Kashmiris has been violated by New Delhi. Qureshi said India's unrestrained oppression has reached unprecedented levels with an inhumane lockdown for over 150 days. He's called on the international community to act in support of the fundamental freedoms and basic human rights of Kashmiris. Qureshi reaffirmed Pakistan's political, diplomatic and moral support to the valiant Kashmiris in their just struggle. In a latest string of Islamophobic attacks, a mosque in the Czech Republic city of Brno has been vandalized with graffiti threatening to kill Muslims. Police said they are investigating this incident. They also said that the perpetrator will face up to 1 year in prison if convicted. Local Muslims say they are taking the incident a serious and direct threat. Croatians are voting to elect a new president today in the second and final round of polling. This comes just days after the country took over the presidency of the European Union. In the first round of voting 2 weeks ago, former Prime Minister Zoran Milanovic led the race by 30%. Milanovic finished ahead of incumbent Conservative President Kolinda Grabar-Kitarovic. Exit polls suggest the race for the next 5-year presidential term could be tight, with Grabar-Kitarovic marginally ahead. Incumbent President Kitarovic, the country's first female president, is running for a second term. Welcome back. In Cambodia, the death toll in the collapse of an under-construction building has risen to 36. Governor Ken Satha said the 7-story building collapsed in the coastal town of Kep, leaving 23 others injured. He said 3 of the bodies have not been pulled out yet. Satha said authorities have detained the building owners for questioning. Strong winds in southeast Australia hampering efforts by firefighters to contain the raging bushfires. Officials say weather systems with powerful gusts threaten to further spread the blaze in New South Wales. Officials say military helicopters have been deployed to evacuate people trapped by flames in the state of Victoria. 4 people are still missing in the state. New South Wales Fire Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons said hundreds of homes may have been razed. 146 fires are still burning across the state and about 65 have not been contained. At least 23 people have been killed across the country since September. Over 1,200 homes have been destroyed, while millions of hectares of land are scorched. And now an update from the business world. In Japan, a bluefin tuna has sold for $1.8 million in an auction at Tokyo's Toyosu fish market. This is the second highest price on record. Japan's state media says the tuna was caught off the northern Amori prefecture and weighed 276 kilograms. The successful bidder was Kiyoshi Kimura, who runs a chain of sushi restaurants called Shuhizanmai. Last year, Kimura paid a record $3 million for a tuna at the auction, exceeding his previous record in 2013. And now let's take a look at what the weather is like in your city. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.